I am Tenitra Batiste, and my key to the game was to not let the kicker determine the outcome, and on some level, he still did.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and at some point, the Falcons offense is going to get off to a fast start on the road, but it was definitely not tonight.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and when are the Falcons going to put some pressure on the opposing secondary on the road?
ATL! ATL! Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman and Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So, guys, let's just get into it. We talked about how much of a signature win or a statement win or an important win against the Buffalo Bills the Atlanta Falcons had on Monday night. But here was another opportunity to sort of follow up with a statement game, an important opportunity for this Falcons team. But the offense did not rise to the occasion, no pun intended, in missed opportunity after opportunity that resulted in the 20-10 loss to the San Francisco 49ers on the road. Now, think about this. It had some potential, and I'm going to use that term loosely, Jarvis, because when you look at the fact that Michael Penix Jr. started off with 9 completions in the first quarter, most in any quarter of his NFL career, you're thinking, okay, that might lead to something, except the Falcons walked away with 0 points. And then in the second quarter, 3 points is all they were able to muster. And of course, we know that they scored 7 points in that third quarter. But ultimately speaking, it just felt like overall, this Falcons offense just could not get it together tonight.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing, because I said that this was going to be the biggest test for the Falcons this year, because you have that game on the road against the Carolina Panthers, and you make some changes from communication standpoint. The offense starts to click, and you get these back-to-back games at home, and the offense is putting up points, and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. But you got one of the better teams in the NFC, and you're on the road, and they just did not have it tonight. And when you think about it from that aspect of it, okay, you start to wonder why. Why didn't the Falcons have success tonight? Why was the Tatum Bethune looking like Fred Warner 2.0? That should not be the case. Like, if you have a sub in the game, if you have a sub behind a guy like that in a game, you test them. You have to try them and see what's going on. And hey, are you good enough? Or what we saw when you subbed in for Fred Warner last week, and you had a solid game. I want to see it. I want you to prove it to me again. You got to continue to prove it to me over and over again. Like, I know we're gonna get into our defense side of the football, but just taking a piece of what Kyle Shanahan did to the Falcons defense. Soon as that Divine Diablo went out that game, oh my gosh, they found 23 coming out of that backfield, and every time it was either Caden Ellis or JD Bertrand, and I like those eyes. I love those eyes for Christian McCaffrey. When you talking about from a coverage standpoint, so yeah, I think that Zach was overthinking this thing a little bit. Like, I know that Michael Penix is really comfortable throwing all the ball outside of the hash, but at some point, you're going to have to work that middle of the field, and they completely avoided that tonight.
Yeah. And when we talked about this game earlier, well, last week, that is, we talked about the fact that, hey, you have to play who's on the field, right? And you're thinking, okay, this is a game where there were some holes, like you mentioned, of Fred Warner, and there could be some opportunities there for the Falcons to take advantage. But it didn't seem like the Falcons kind of knew how they wanted to take advantage, Aaron. It just felt like at every turn, the Falcons were maybe making a misstep, or the Falcons weren't maybe looking and saying, hey, here's an advantage for us, we'll take it on. Or if they saw an advantage, they didn't seem to keep going back to that well, if you will, enough once they saw that something was effective.
Yeah, I think Jarvis is right. Like you went into this game expecting the Falcons to try to attack the middle of that 49ers defense where they were vulnerable. They didn't really do that. And
Right.
so you're sitting there and the run game never really got rolling like we've seen it before. That second series where the Falcons were able to successfully move the ball and get the ball in the field goal range. There's a lot of passing. And I'm not going to be super critical of the play calling because the Falcons were effective moving the football in this game, but it did feel like this was not their best effort. This was not following off of the heels of 2 weeks where this offense looked like it was starting to get its thing rolling. The question was going to be, okay, you did that at home. We have seen this consistently with Michael Penix through his 8 starts where he's really good at home, not so great on the road. And you wanted to kind of see, Zach Robinson be able to cook up some things to get him going on the road, really kind of for the first time in his NFL career. And you didn't really quite get that in this game. But it's not just all on the play calling. Penix didn't play particularly well. Drake London wasn't a huge impact. You had like 1 or 2 good plays from Darnell Mooney, but he didn't really provide the shot of adrenaline in the arm. The offensive line did not play to the level that we have seen them play. How much of that is owed to playing from behind and the 49ers being able to get after the quarterback and Bryce Huff, really exposing, Elijah Wilkinson a number of times.
Yeah.
Like the only real positive you can really take away from it, like Bijan played great, but probably didn't get the ball enough in this game. And Kyle Pitts played really well, but that was really about it. And so it just felt like, this is going to be, like we were talking about the first 3 games of the season with this offense, where it's just like, okay, like it's fine, but like there still feels like a whole lot of meat left on that bone offensively. And when you come away with only 10 points, it does feel like, you're a little lacking there.
Yeah. And I hear you on that, Aaron, but I guess for me, Jarvis, I don't want to attack per se the strategy for Zach Robinson, but on the same token, I guess I do feel like, well, we're having the same conversation again, right? So Kyle Pitts has 10 targets, catches the ball 7 times, 62 yards, a near explosive, but no touchdown. So I think for me, and even Darnell Mooney, okay, fine, 3 receptions on 5 targets for 68 yards. But I guess if you think about it, we looked at the last half of the game against the Bills and said, okay, we respect the fact that the Falcons were, the offense was pretty futile in the second half, but it was about ball control and just keeping Josh Allen on the field. But there are moments where when you see the offensive futility again this week, and you see it pretty much for the duration of the game, with the exception of the possession or the drive in the third quarter where they scored 7, I don't know. It's a little bit disconcerting whether or not that strategy was the right strategy in terms of, okay, but you saw the same futility in the back half of last week's game as well.
Yeah, I think just overall, I just felt like this offense didn't have a sense of urgency. What I mean when I say that is, it seems like, okay, outside zone not working. We try that. Okay, we start to get some toss in. Okay, we try that. That didn't necessarily work. Oh, okay, it's a passing situation. We're going to pass the ball. And when you need to push the ball down the field, it's not because you're trying to be aggressive and trying to set the tone. It's because you're in a 3rd and long situation and you have to try to, push the ball down the field. And every time that they were put in that situation, Michael Penix was either not getting rid of the football, and there were times where he really didn't have those hot reads, so to speak. So I guess, I can question the route concepts. I can dig into it a little bit more, by going back and watching the film, a little bit later. But I think that just overall, they didn't have a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
They became obvious because, they put themselves in that situation to be obvious. And when you have those, that's why you saw guys like Bryce Huff get off like he did. And he was able to expose Elijah Wilkinson, because we knew coming into this game, Elijah Wilkinson is not the best pass blocker, right? You could probably put Caleb McGarry, they're right there neck and neck when it comes to pass blocking. We just understand what Caleb McGarry does when they're running the football. So when you aren't able to run the football, you're going to get exposed. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And I think, too, for me, Aaron, it may not be the strategy for the game overall, but I do think in a game that's tight, because 20 points is not world beater type numbers from the San Francisco 49ers. So in a game like that, where there were opportunities where this game was close until it wasn't, I do think you have moments where you do still have to make the right decision. And I think the juxtaposition for me, when I kind of think of, okay, what did the 49ers do in this situation that was right? What maybe did the Falcons do that wasn't so right? So I'm thinking, okay, well, when Clay Kubiak had an opportunity and it was 3rd and short or 4th and short, they're going to just run it, right? They're just going to run it straight up. It's just a yard, right? And so all they did was say, hey, we just want to live to see the next play. We just want to live to keep the drive going. I did have a problem with a 4th and 1 and thinking that the appropriate thing to do was to toss the ball to Drake London. Like, I just didn't feel like that was the right decision. Like, why not just live to see another possession? Like, why not just live to see another down?
No, I hear you, T. I think the strategy is definitely criticizing the strategy. I think makes sense. I guess for me, like, it felt like to me, looking at this game, like when you talk about that specific issue, I think that kind of sums up the game, because you had the 3rd and 1 before that. You run a toss play to Bijan and it gets stuffed. And so I think the Falcons are sitting there going like, well, their short yardage running game has not been that good this year. It's been very hit and miss. And usually it's like, okay, well, we'll just smash it in there with Tyler Algier. And so I think that's another opportunity for you to do that. But we've seen this team, particularly in some of these road games, kind of struggle to do that. And so I think you can absolutely second guess that decision to throw the ball in 4th and 1. But it was at the same time, like, part of me is just like, Penix made a bad throw. And like, I don't feel like that was a situation where it's like, oh, well, that throwing the ball in that situation is doomed to fail. You just got to make a better throw than what Michael Penix did in this game. And I just feel like that kind of summarizes my thoughts on the game. Like, I think the strategy of Zach Robinson, the play calling, and not attacking the middle of the field and not running the football are all things that we will sit here and second guess because the Falcons did not take care of business. But for me, a lot of it was just like, you just got out executed by this 49ers defense. I think they won the line of scrimmage far more effectively than you wanted them to. Your receivers were not really getting the type of separation that we have seen them get the last couple of weeks outside of Kyle Pitts. And then your quarterback continue. And again, I'm not trying to blame it all on Michael Penix, but like, your quarterback continues to struggle in road games where like the first 2.5 quarters, it's like, okay, well, he'll get going. And similar to what we saw in that Washington game last year, where he kind of struggled for 3 quarters and then he came alive in the 4th quarter. And I was kind of waiting for Michael Penix to have that sort of clutch performance in the 4th quarter. And he didn't really quite get there. And then part of that is owed to him getting a little nicked up at the end of the game. And sort of when you needed him to kind of make the throws and make the plays, he didn't make the plays. And so I felt like the Falcons were kind of waiting for someone to sort of come alive and make a play. And unfortunately, nobody stepped up in that situation.
Yeah. And I think, and I hear what you're saying, but then, I could counter and say, well, what about Michael Penix's performance throughout the course of that game made you think that he was going to throw a ball on 4th and 1 that actually would have gotten to where? And now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that nice little jump of the route at the last moment wasn't a heck of a play as well. But I'm just like, you know, there are so many other options that could have happened. And like you said, maybe the ground game wasn't working for the Falcons, so they're not necessarily going to say, hey, Bijan, you can push it through. But there are teams that don't have running or super mobile QBs that'll go ahead and say, hey, just sneak this. I mean, to me, I don't know. That was a question for me. And there's another play, but I want to save that one for special teams because it makes my earlier point about I told you I didn't want the kicker to have any impact on this game whatsoever. And somehow he still did.
And I think just for me coming into this game, I feel like this was a prime opportunity for a breakout game for a guy like Darnell Mooney because of the young guys that they're rotating in and out and trying to figure out who's going to be the guy at safety. The 49ers were playing downhill all game. They were not afraid of the deep ball at all. At all. That's why they had so much success stopping the run because the Falcons did not try them. They just did not try them. I'm talking about quick screens, and they got in the end zone in the first half, throwing the screen to Bijan Robinson, but that works in that area. But when you're talking about trying to sustain drives and really put some pressure on this defense, they just did not do that. And I think that Darnell Mooney was ready to do that because there were times where he got open from time to time, right? And, especially, when you have that certain matchup that you were able to take advantage of. Kyle Pitts had some success, like you mentioned earlier, T. And then, of course, you getting the rock to Bijan Robinson. Drake London was a little quiet tonight. He had a game of his lifetime last week against the Buffalo Bills, but he's quiet. What happened this week? It's just so many little things that you say, okay, you think, okay, they should be able to take advantage of it. Go back to what we talked about last year. Free, it's coming back around again. Going to the games, you think they should be able to take advantage of certain things, and then when it doesn't play out that way, it's not necessarily you're angry, you're just kind of disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's that whole up and down because I know as I was watching the game, I was feeling like, okay, there's a letdown there, right? Because what you saw last week in the first half in particular that could have been replicated. But then again, you got to give a lot of credit and kudos to Robert Saleh for making all the adjustments that he made so that the 49ers defense could perform the way they could perform, even in the absence of some of their best players. So sometimes you kind of run into that as well. But again, that's what halftime is for, and making adjustments and figuring out where you do have something to get you the hot hand. And granted, again, taking nothing away from the fact that, hey, the Falcons were able to score that touchdown in the third quarter, but you just have to be able to replicate that in order to walk away with the win. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what we saw on the defensive side of the ball, because there were some good things that we saw on defense, but obviously sometimes when you are missing one of your critical components and the other team can take advantage, well, you walk away with a 20-10 loss. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promise to make work easier, but the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. It's actually pretty darn sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. So by uniting employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. So think about this. Right now, you can actually get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonNFL. So you can learn more at rippling.com/lockedonfootball. Again, that's rippling.com/lockedonNFL, lockedonNFL. 6 months for free. Rippling.com/lockedonNFL. Terms and conditions apply. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like maybe Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown. If that happens again and you're in the game, or more importantly, a night like tonight where Bijan Robinson gets a 10-yard pass, takes it in for a touchdown. And you'll love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. And one of your favorite parts is probably going to be stats, where basically if you want to ride with a player, you can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns, i.e. Bijan Robinson with the yards from scrimmage, all in one lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. So guys, I think one of the things I wanted to start with, just in terms of defense free, is sometimes it's tough when you are going without your guys. So the Falcons go into this game, no Jalen Walker. Then the Falcons get into this game, no Divine Diablo. How much of a disconnect, or how much was it a disadvantage rather for this defense going into San Fran? No Jalen Walker. Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly didn't help things. Now, I won't put too much of what we saw from this defense, or at least some of the struggles of this run defense, on the absences of players, because they were struggling to stop the run with those players on the football field in previous weeks. But certainly if you're sort of looking at it from the standpoint of maybe losing one of those guys, particularly a guy like Jalen Walker, who is a guy that can set the edge so effectively, maybe that's the straw that breaks the camel's back. Although for me, when I'm watching this game, I'm just watching the 49ers just kind of run it between the tackles. And even if Jalen Walker is in this game, I don't know if he's making that much of a difference for that, but maybe you get a little bit more juice in the run defense. You get a little bit more juice in the pass rush. And so you're losing a player in Jalen Walker that I think certainly hurt this defense, but I won't go too far to say oh, that's the reason why San Francisco was just basically from start to finish, or the defense got a little bit tighter. The run defense got a little bit tighter in the second half, but first half of that game, where it was just 7, 10, 15 yards a pop, pretty much anytime they wanted to run the ball.
Yeah. 60 yards between the tackles, to be exact, for Christian McCaffrey in the first half. So yeah, Jarvis, for you, obviously just starting with not having Jalen Walker there, as Free mentioned, that's a tough one. But I think when Divine Diablo goes out of the game, that's a tough one for the Falcons as well.
1000%. Talking about how this guy is a transformer type guy. He's the guy he's a downhill linebacker. I remember in that first game of the season when they playing against the Buccaneers, I remember tweeting out, I remember it vividly, one of the first plays that he made, I was like, that's how you play linebacker, coming downhill. And that running back is coming at you. It don't matter what move he is. He just got it outside shoulder free, and he going to put you on the ground. And that's the type of player that he is. And he's been that consistent guy in the middle of that defense, to be able to allow Caden Ellis to do what he does, for him to go down to that line of scrimmage and, in that 5-man front and rush the passer, or come off that edge and get flat down the hill and make that play from behind in the run game. So for me, I feel like this is one of those scenarios. This was a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
The guy that, that can hurt you the most if he goes down is definitely Divine Diablo.
Yeah.
Especially in a game like this. Because one thing that I talked about when I was at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Monday night at halftime, I said, if Joe Brady gets out of his own way and decides to just pound the rock, they got a chance to win this football game. And that first drive, it looked like that coming out of that half. And that particular drive, Kyle Shanahan said, I'm going to do that all game. And y'all going to have to stop me. And that's exactly what it did. I'm just run. Turn around, hand it off. Guard pull, come on down. Gap scheme, old school. We about to run it down your throat. And that's what it is. Trent Williams, he said it after the game. He was like, man, hey, man, we won up front. And that's what it is. And Kyle knew it. Kyle, one thing about Kyle, I love him as a play caller because he doesn't overthink this thing. If he sees an advantage, if he sees something he can take advantage of, like losing the prototypical linebacker in today's NFL, yeah, I'm going right at 40.
Yeah.
JD Bertrand. Yep, I'm coming right at you. Better get ready. And that's what he continued to do. Yeah, and he wasn't ready. And to be honest with you, T, no shade.
No.
I knew he wasn't ready.
Yeah, definitely.
Like he ain't ready.
Right.
He's a special team guy in my eyes at this moment. So
Yes.
yeah, like when stuff like that happens, though, you just gotta grin and bear it. And the Falcons just couldn't recover.
Yeah, and for you, Free, just seeing Divine Diablo go down. I mean, just what was that? What was your thought in terms of, okay, I know where this game was, I know, and we know where this game ended.
Yeah, I mean, my mind was not right when I saw Divine Diablo go down, because to what Jarvis said, like, you know, I like JD Bertrand, Captain America, as we say, but we saw in the preseason like what he was going up against second and third stringers, and to think him going up against the Trent Williamses and the Christian McCaffreys of the world, like, yeah, and so you were just kind of, all right, JD, you just hold on for dear life, my guy. Like, you know, like this is you know, hopefully the rest of the team is going to step up, because if we're relying on you to make the play, it's not gonna be you to make the play. And you know, the interior, you know, shout out to Zach Harrison. He made a couple of nice plays, but the rest of the interior was getting bodied in this game. I know, again, I don't want to sort of single out any one individual or whatever, but I know a lot of people were like, okay, what's Taquan Graham going to do this week? And I was watching Taquan Graham, I was like, he getting bodied. David Onyemata's getting bodied. You know, Sam Roberts had a great game last week, and I don't recall him having, you know, it was just,
he made a couple plays for you.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say like everybody was getting completely obliterated, but like this defensive front is predicated on getting penetration. It is not we're going to hold the point of attack and stop the run. We're going to penetrate. And basically, like, Zach Harrison was the only guy that was really doing that in this game. And so when you only have one out of 5 guys on the interior, you know, kind of making the plays that you need to make in order for this run defense to work, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And guys, and kind of add to what you're saying, Free, guys like Brandon Dorless, like, what happened? Where he at? What's up? Like, the first few games, man, 54 out there getting it, and he's just disappeared. He's disappeared off the map, and that's the type of stuff that you can't have. That's the type of stuff that when you look at that draft class, right? Like a Rook. Anybody seen Rook? Did he play tonight? I'm trying to figure it out. Like, I know Free said he ain't gonna call him out, but I'll help you. I help you out, Free. You know, where are thou? Like, it was just like Zach Harrison was the only thing that was pleasing to my eyes up front tonight. The only thing, you know, and he can't do it by himself.
Yeah,
he can't do it by himself. James Pierce Jr., where are you, sir? Where are you? I mean, these are the type of things that can't happen. You can't disappear for games.
Yeah, and you're right.
Like multiple guys can't disappear for games. I'm sorry.
Right.
That just can't happen in an NFL game. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's no way that should be happening at this point.
Yeah, because if you have Zach Harrison doing the job that he's doing, where, hey, first play on defense, we got ourselves a sack. Okay. So Zach Harrison is just saying, hey, anybody else, any of these other 10, anybody want to, you know, just kind of help me. And for him to be in that situation where with Xavier Watts, when he was able to get that tackle and kind of force that 3 and out, I think that was like the second drive in the second half. Zach Harrison. That's part of the reason that he was able to get that. But like you said, other than that, Free, like you can't just have one moment, or you can't just have one or two players kind of playing their best games. Like everybody has to bring what you saw last week every week.
Yeah. And, you mentioned last week, and Jarvis kind of touched upon this, like when the Bills ran the ball to James Cook in the second half, they were getting whatever they wanted to get. But because they were playing from behind, they couldn't commit to running the football. And again, so far this season with the Falcons run, like they have not really been able to stop the run really in any game. True. But because the offense is performing at a certain level, it kind of dictates how committed a team can be running the football. Like that Washington game, Washington ran the ball a ton because they were basically like, we don't trust Marcus Mariota to win this football game. And they were successful running the football, and that allowed that game to look a little closer on the scoreboard than it wound up being. Mm-hmm. But like basically at this point, not to put it all back on the offense, but like right now with the way that the run defense has looked through, now 6 games, their best run defense is their offense. And if they can't put points up on the board, like I just remember we had these conversations in August and at the beginning of the season where it was like there was going to be a game where a team is just going to basically say, we're going to run the football down your throat. And I don't know if the Falcons are going to stop them. And they just had that game. And now that blueprint is out there for the rest of the NFL to basically say, okay, well, if we can slow down. And the challenge is because this team offensively looks so different on the road versus at home, you got like 4 more road games in your next 6 games. So you got to figure that whole thing out as well, or otherwise we're going to be having more of these conversations over the next several weeks if the Falcons can't either figure out how to get off to better starts offensively, or figure out ways to tighten up this run defense. And if they're going to be dealing with some of these injuries that are now starting to accumulate on the defense side of the ball, especially in the back 7 or in the linebacker position, especially where they don't really have depth at all, like that's going to be a challenge for this team in the next few weeks.
Yeah, a challenge indeed. Well, there are some other challenges that when you think about how close this game was at certain points, you need not just your offense, not just your defense, but you need to have somebody reliable to keep you in this game. And I really still believe that the lack of reliability for a certain position also dictated a lot, some at least of what we saw on the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about that next. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. So Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accent to available Napa leather upholstery, and you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. So like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So Jarvis, special teams. Special teams. Now, there was a good one. So, we didn't have the good fortune of being able to start the first segment or the second segment with anything good. But we'll give some positives before I go into what I wanted to say about the other side of special teams. And you got to give Jamal Agnew a load of credit for the 47-yard return that flipped the field for the Falcons. You've got to give Bradley Pinion a world of credit for what he was able to do in terms of punts. So at least with Jamal Agnew, I think now 2 Sundays in a row, or two weeks in a row that he's back and doing some good things for special teams. That was at least one positive takeaway from what they were able to do tonight.
Yeah, because going back to the beginning of the year when it was just, hey, let's try this guy out. Let's see who Natron Brooks. Yeah, going on out there. You return? Oh, Diop. Oh, yeah, going on out there. You're like, whoever wants to go back there, just go back there and we'll figure it out. And now that, like you said, Jamal Agnew, it seems like he's getting his footing, so to speak. Like you can see, hey, this guy was one of the better returners in the league at some point during his career. So you're starting to see why they brought him in. So that was definitely something that I liked. Right. Another thing that I liked, there was a punt specifically by Bradley Pinion in the third quarter, less than a minute left. Pinned him down there like Cardell Hodge. Hey, Pro Bowler. You know, he recovered that bad boy inside the 5. And I was like, okay, you're setting your team up for success, right? They're inside the 5-yard line. Your defense can at least, they don't have to, you would have loved for them to pin them right there. Hey, go 3 and out. But, you know, they get a couple first downs, but they end up eventually making them punt. So when you think about it from that aspect of it, like, all right, they had to go so far in order to just get some decent field position. Your special teams basically put them in a hole. So you kind of give yourself, you know, an opportunity to get a stop that you needed. So I think that, you know, with Jamal Agnew returning the ball like he did tonight, and Bradley Pinion being a tool, you know, to deploy and make plays for you, and then you have your guy, the coverage team, going out there down on the ball like they did. I think that was a nice sight to see, because they were really setting themselves up to be. You talk about 3 phases of the game. You win 2 out of 3, you get the dub. And if the Falcons were somehow able to pull this out, I feel like special teams would have been one of those phases that they would have helped them get a win.
Yeah. Particularly, as you mentioned, with the Jamal Agnew return, if you will, now you put yourself in position where all you have to do, Free, is run 6 plays, and then you find yourself in the end zone, or you Bradley Pinion. I mean, if that game had turned, if in the Falcons' favor, you could easily have said that would have been the turning point if it had happened. So yeah, you got to give a lot of credit. And Jarvis, I meant to say, I know I mentioned Jamal Agnew. You mentioned Cardell Hodge as well, because yes, Bradley Pinion with the incredible punt, but Cardell Hodge being able to field it and inside the 5 and not let that ball bounce in for a touchback. All 3 of those were some good signs for Marquise Williams' squad.
Yeah. I think when it comes to field position, the Falcons, you know, those elements took care of business. But T, I know you're itching to talk about the thing that we all want to talk about, so I'll let you tee it up and we can talk about it.
I was gonna be nice. I was gonna let you go and then say
it's okay, T. We can let it out. This is where we let it out right here. This is where we, you know what I'm saying? We relax, relate, release.
Yeah, this is not a 5-minute conversation. So let's
at all.
We can just go ahead and let it ride, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Lil Parker Romo his credit for kicking a 38-yard field goal. Congrats. That's great. But when it's playing in the back of the minds of your head coach and your offensive coordinator, how they're going to proceed in short yardage situations, where I was actually on a call and the person said, hey, why'd you guys not try to kick that field goal? And I was like, well, you know, saying you guys because he knew, hey, we're on our way to the Falcons postgame show. And I go, it's not obvious. Like, it makes, and this is the thing I said Thursday. Remember, we talked about keys to the game. And I said, don't let the kicker be the determining factor for the outcome of this game. I still feel like in any other instance, that kicker, especially because of what you saw on the other side, where you see Eddie Pinheiro go for a 55-yarder. It's the kind of thing that's frustrating, because at that moment in the game, if you're able to rely on your kicker and you believe that he's going to actually boot that ball through, I still feel like it's a different game, as opposed to you're going for it on 4th and 1, or you're going or you're in a 3rd down situation and it's 3rd and short, but you're like, Yeah, no, I can't afford to go to fourth down because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to have to put this game in the hands of the kicker, and I don't trust that. To me, Aaron, it's like you said, it's a bigger conversation that we knew we potentially were going to have throughout the course of the game, but you called it 6 games, 4 on the road. A lot of times those road games are won and lost by that kind of short spread of 3 points. And here we are. I know it was a 10-point loss, but if we really think about where it was, it's really not the 10 points if I'm talking. I know I'm kind of going on a diatribe because it ticks me off because I'm like, this is exactly what I said was going to be the key to the game not to happen, and did.
Yeah. So, for those of you that missed it, what we're talking about is that 4th and 1. The Falcons had an opportunity to kick like 52, 53-yard field goal or
Yeah,
whatever.
it was somewhere between like 50, 52. Yes.
Yes. And they elected to not kick it, and they went for it on 4th and 1. And, that decision is going to be second guessed because you had an opportunity to tie up the game 13-13. But like, as we discussed, like, I don't blame Raheem for not trusting the kicker. The issue is not, to me, Raheem not trusting the kicker or the decision to go for it in that situation because you don't trust the kicker. The issue is you don't have a kicker that you can trust. And so, it's not as and the immediate reaction is going to be, well, if you don't trust Parker Romo to make that kick, then you need to get a new kicker. And it's like, that's a fair point. We've been talking about this all season long.
Right.
Like, the Falcons, John Parker Romo is a Band-Aid. And it's one of those, not to be too colorful, it's one of those Band-Aids where you can still see the bleeding through the Band-Aid and whatnot. And it's like, maybe we need to change that Band-Aid a little bit. Like, that doesn't look too pretty at this point. And
Band-Aid have plus on it at this point.
Yeah. I was going to say, and Free, I was actually thinking whenever that happens, that also means that there might be some situations where there's an infection because, something is going amiss, like really amiss and awry under that Band-Aid. But go on. I like your analogy.
And, part of it is we know Raheem is naturally aggressive, right? So
Sure.
that's part of it.
Yeah, certainly okay with
that. Even under other circumstances, there's a good chance that Raheem's going forward on that 4th and 1, even if he trusts the kicker. But it's very obvious that the Falcons do not trust their kicker. And as we discussed a couple of weeks ago with this sort of back and forth with John Parker Romo, and it's like, is this going to be a conversation all season long? It's still a conversation. And the challenge right now for the Falcons is if they don't have the veteran in Parker Romo, they have 2 rookies kickers. And I don't think Raheem is going to be like, well, I trust Lenny Craig or I trust Ben Sauls to make that kick either. Yeah. So you got to ask the question, and it's going to continue to be a question until you figure it out. Yep. Do you need to go out there and get another kicker? And you mentioned Eddie Pinheiro. He turned down the Falcons to go sign with the 49ers. And he said, I wanted to win games. And right now he's on a 5-2 football team instead of a 3-3 football team. So, Eddie Pinheiro, out here calling his shots and whatnot and making us all look bad. But the Falcons still got a major kicking question that's still looming over their heads, and it's still a conversation.
Yeah. And Jarvis, I think, as Free mentioned, there's no frustration in going for it on 4th down. Like that, if I don't think I said it, but let me make sure everybody's clear. I'm always good with that for the most part, because in my mind, I already know if it's 4th and 1, 2, or 3, that's pretty much Raheem Morris go for it territory, right? So he goes for it twice tonight. That's nothing that's out of the ordinary for him, but it's that underlying reason why you really went for it that's problematic. And the fact that here we are, and Free makes a great point. This is a 5-2 team where this kicker has been darn near perfect. Here's a team that's 3-3. And again, it's the pivotal moments where you either miss the field goal, or in this case, the opt is away from you kicking the field goal that's problematic, because you could be the team that's 4-3, just like they could be the team that's 4-3, except they're the ones with the guy who kicks the 55-yarder and you're the one with a guy where you don't even trust that he's going to make it 5 yards closer in.
And I don't know if we've ever been in a situation where we understand that Raheem Morris wants to be aggressive in those moments, but we also know that he doesn't trust the kicker. That is a weird scenario. And I feel like it's a Falcon-y type thing, for those like if you know, that's a term, if you know, and those of you watching or listening to this podcast, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And it's truly unfortunate that you have to deal with that, right? Because if you're going to be aggressive, let's just talk about that for a second. If you're going to be aggressive, you want to feel like you have the advantage as a play caller. I've been fine with Zach Robinson as a play caller for the most part since he walked through that door. I mean, I assume that you're gonna have to take some lumps when you're a first time play caller. Sure, no doubt about it. But in that particular situation, just given how your quarterback has been throwing the football, he was solid right throughout the night. But there were just moments where he was just like, "What was that?" Like it was like a delay, like the sense of urgency was there. You knew the guys, I'm not saying feel the pressure, but feel the pressure. You know it's coming. You got to be able to get rid of football and know where you're going with it. And then also the coach has to align with you being able to have those certain route concepts that kind of match up with what you're going to be facing or what Saylor was throwing against you. So I feel like them not kicking that field goal was just right in line with how this game was going.
Yes.
You were like, you said a 53-yard field goal. They ain't no big deal in today's game. Brandon Aubrey out here kicking 65 yards with plenty of leg left. I know that's an extreme example, but guys make 50-yard field goals like they used to make 40-yard field goals back 10, 15 years ago. And when you're in a situation where I know I'm gonna go for it, if it's a 50+ yard field goal, sometimes you're gonna have to make those things. You have to kick those balls because you're gonna get into these dog fights, and the teams you're gonna be jabbing back and forth, and then you're gonna try to go for the knockout blow, and you're gonna mess around and lose the game because of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a source of frustration because you think about the fact that, oh my goodness, you're about to go on the road for a clip. And this is the type of thing where, again, we're okay with aggressiveness on the part of Raheem Morris, where we're being the rationale for going for it on fourth down. We're not okay with being the rationale of, wait a minute, when I'm in no man's land, because in that space, there's no place really for Bradley Pinion to punt it, right? So you're kind of in no man's land of either it's going to be a kick or it's going to be we're going for it. You just don't want it to be we're going for it primarily because we don't want any kicking. But when we come back, we'll talk about how these Falcons might need to reset. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So you're going to love FanDuel because it gives you so many ways to play. I mean, you can build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Download the app today and get started. So oftentimes on our Falcons Squad shows, we take it to the couch. You might want to talk through some things and you might want to feel better about life. So, Jarvis, I think there's something that you might want to get off your chest, and we want you to get that off your chest because we don't want you going to sleep with angina. So what is it that you feel a burning desire to share?
So I want to say this because y'all know how I trust my eyeballs, and I don't mind being wrong with my eyeballs because this is what I see, this is what I interpret as to what's going on the field, and I make an assessment and I go with it. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but if I'm right, you know what I'm saying, you just let it be known that I was right. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't do that. Hey man, you didn't say this, but this is what I have to get off my chest. Jesse Bates. He been outplayed by a rookie. I think that when it comes to tonight, one particular drive, 2 missed tackles. I know it's Christian McCaffrey, but you Jesse Bates. I can't have you out here missing tackles. That can't happen. The cheating, I'm more than willing to allow it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm willing to allow you to, if you see something, go get it, man. I will never tell a player not to, based off of his film study, he sees something and he jumps on that bad boy. I am totally fine with that. But what is unacceptable? You can't be out here missing tackles, bruh. Not in a game like this. Because guess what? Kyle Shanahan said, we about to line up. We about to get in the old school 12 personnel. We about to turn around and hand it off to 23. We about to pull this guard around. And we about to run it right up the freaking gut. And it ain't nothing you could do about it. True enough, defensive line probably deserves most of this. But once they get to that next level, the man has to go down to the ground. And if 3 is right there, I need to assume that he's going to go on the ground. So, yeah, Jesse Bates has not been himself this year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to argue against me on that, free, you know what I'm saying? By all means, sir, we can have that debate. But that man has not been himself this year. And I think tonight it showed. It shined through. And I was just like, man, I was very disappointed. Very disappointed when it comes to basic stuff like that.
Well, Jarvis, to be fair, Jesse Bates did lead the team in tackles with 10, and 4 of those were solo. But I think your point is well taken in that, number one, you got to still tackle when it matters.
I did say the defensive line didn't play well either, so yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, safety's they're going to make tackles. Yeah, they're going to make tackles. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because the other piece of that is it's not just about the numbers. It's also about when are you tackling and when are you missing those tackles. So that's why I said, to be fair, he did lead the team. But on the same token, to be fair to you, you're saying in those critical moments where, hey, if it's not happening up front, it's got to happen at the second level and didn't. That's where it's problematic. And that's because when you look back at his first couple of seasons with the Falcons and where he landed as far as even something as simple as tackles, right? When you're looking at where he was a third of the way through last season, a third of the way through his first season with the Falcons, 30 tackles. So multiplying almost twice as much as what he has right now, which is 17. So there is still like not just a quantity or quality aspect of it, but there could be a quantity aspect of it as well. And like you said, you're looking at what Xavier Watts is over here doing. And sometimes, granted, there may be some scheming that allows for Xavier Watts to kind of go off, but we talked about it a little bit earlier, that tackle that he had in that second drive that helped to force that 3 and out. Like, you can't not see that. But on the same token, and Aaron, I'll ask you to wrap us up, but on the same token, if we're being honest, we also saw some poor tackling a few too many times overall for this Falcons team, because there was one situation. I think it's one play where like right in that first drive of the second half, and it's like missed tackle after missed tackle. So Scott Moore just kind of does his thing. The only good thing that came out of it, and it kind of like took the edge off of it, was the Falcons were still able to hold the 49ers to a field goal. But there were, to me, that goes back to, like we were talking about with the offense, they just didn't seem ready or with the sense of urgency. And there were just moments in time where overall with the defense, it's like, okay, we just need you to do your basic 101 job. You do your basic 101 job, and any number of times things could have turned out differently. But for you, Free, I wanted to ask as well, before we wrap up, like was there anything else that kind of stood out, like the sore thumb that Jesse Bates is for Jarvis Davis? Is there anything that stood out for you, or like a sore thumb that really just kind of got under your skin about how this team played, whether it was on offense, defense, or even special teams?
Not particularly. I go into these games, much to the chagrin of some of my listeners, with not high expectations, right? I'm at a point with the Falcons where it's just like they are outperforming my expectations through the first several games of the season, but that doesn't mean I'm like, oh, this team is, coming off that Bills game, oh, this team is headed to the Super Bowl or anything like that. So for me, it was just kind of like, I kind of expect the 49ers to do the game plan that they did and try to run the football, and it's up to the Falcons to stop them from doing that. And the 49ers were able to execute their game plan. I'm like, okay, this is why I don't set my expectations high, because I'm just like, anytime I start to buy in on the Falcons, they find a way to disappoint me. So it's one of those things where, like, I look at this game and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, this is not a surprise to me, but it's like the challenge for this game is going to have potential. If this team is going to wind up being a playoff team at the end of the season, which I think they are, despite all my reservations, it's going to have tie-breaking implications at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And so, like, the Falcons can't just beat up on AFC teams. They got to beat some NFC teams, some teams in the division, some non-divisional teams in the NFC, because we can sit here and so, like, we can sit here 3-3 is a good spot to be, relatively speaking, but the 3 wins that they have, no offense to the Vikings, but like I'm not sure if these 3 wins are really helping them when we get to the end of the year, in the manner that we think it is, or at least the way that we hope it is. So they got some things they got to tighten up, and that's going to be a challenge over the next couple of weeks. So for me, it's just like, okay, like, I try never to get too high off of the wins, too low off of the losses, and so I'm kind of just at a neutral medium all the time, and I'm just like, all right, and here, and Falcons always find a way to keep me here. I never ever get off this spot, I guess. I don't know.
It's just like, it sounds like it's kind of like Freeze being on Free on the hamster wheel.
This is so depressing. Oh my gosh. I feel sorry for you, my man. Like,
I don't think he's.
I just want to come on the show and just hug you, bro, for the next 30 minutes when you go on Locked On Falcons. No, I just want to hug you, man. Like, I'm just gonna hug you, bro.
Jarvis,
more support.
I don't think he's depressed. Like, I think he's more trying to be even keeled. Like he said, he's not going to go overboard. Maybe we got a little excited about the Buffalo Bills win, right? But he's not going to get too far down about this. I think what makes me kind of like, well, no, I'm not going to get too far down per se, but it is a little bit frustrating because you're in third place in your division. So when you're looking at the standings, and of course we are very early into the season, and the standings don't quite mean as much. Like, you haven't even gotten like halfway through the season per se. But if I'm kind of looking at the conference and you're kind of looking up in the NFC, and you're kind of seeing the Bucs at the top of the conference, that's where it starts to get a little bit kind of touch and go, if you will, because then you start looking at, as you mentioned, Free, you look at the Packers, the 49ers, the Eagles, the Rams, the Seahawks, and you could just kind of go on, and then you kind of see the Falcons in kind of like that 11th spot. It's when you lose games like this where it's going to make a difference in the end, where you're trying to, if it comes to this, right? Like if the Buccaneers don't fall back down to earth and they end up going on to win the NFC South, then I guess your path to the postseason is going to be dictated by some of these critical conference wins or conference losses. So yeah, while I'm like you, I'm not going to panic right now. It does make me a little bit concerned because you can't keep dropping these conference games and expect that it won't bite you in the butt down the road. But hey, I'll take the free road. I'll take the free philosophy and just say, at the end of the day, it is still just one game. So thanks to our everydayers.
They're going to end.
What'd you say?
I said, at the end of the day going to end.
Thank God, because man, on that note, thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcons Squad Show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked on Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, for more post-game coverage shortly. We will see you next time.